So there you have Stephen Hawking's view about the origin of the universe. And notice he has some very strong opinions, as many scientists do, and they're in some conflict with what some philosophers have to say. Obviously, you saw he didn't think much of Kant, nor of Aristotle. Certainly made fun of the Christian theologian who decided that the universe started on a Monday morning or some other thing. Monday morning in a certain month in a certain year. He thought that that was absolutely absurd. But notice he didn't think it was absurd to explain to you that it makes no sense to ask a question, what came before the Big Bang? He says this is a matter of relativity theory. Now, I don't feel comfortable even trying to assess a claim like that, only because, frankly, I really do not understand relativity theory. And I'm not sure what it says, and I don't understand what it says about time. But notice there are all kinds of questions here that I think go past the scientific questions. It's not a question of discovering a theory that's supported by evidence, because Lord knows what evidence can go against or can count in favor of some of these theories. But as I said, the scientists have taken over speculation about where the universe comes from, but there are still many questions having to do with the nature of reality that scientists don't answer. And if you notice, a question that's come up here is one of, science versus religion, right? That Stephen Hawking was very clear about. That is, science made sense, but the religious stories of creation, made absolutely no sense. As he made fun of he had his little myth that he started everything off. Now, does science really explain anything? Are they providing an explanation? And what explanation do they provide you with? But that's really focusing on where the universe came from, why there's something rather than nothing. Hard questions to answer. But that certainly, philosophy got started answering questions like that. The first philosophers were interested in astronomy, were trying to explain everything about the universe. In fact, it's only recently, in the last 300 or 400 years, that these sciences have been broken up into individual sciences focusing on more specific problems. But let's go back, or let's turn, to the questions in metaphysics of ontology. And you said, what is ontology? It's the philosophical study of being in existence. It comes from the Greek word ousia, meaning being. Should be an end of quote there. And ology, we know, means the study of. And sorry about the capital O, but PowerPoint has its way of helping me out when I don't want. So the study of being is ontology, the study of being, or the philosophical study of existence. And kind of the central questions are, what is reality? What kinds of things exist? I mean, what is reality is really a very kind of abstract question, hard to get your hands on. Although, for those of you who are fans of the movie The Matrix, maybe you have an idea what kind of questions are asked, because they're definitely, the movie was definitely written around philosophical themes and questions of philosophy. But I think there's a more practical way to think about it. Well, what kinds of things exist? The computer you're looking at, it's a physical object, right? It's made out of material. It's made out of these atoms. Well, what do the scientists tell us about these atoms? They're made up of neutrons and protons. And guess what? What we're looking at is mostly space, right? It's not a solid physical thing, but it's mostly space. Somehow we don't see that. Have you guys ever seen an atom? No, but everybody believes what the scientists are telling them. There's an atom there. Well, from the fact that there's a scientific theory that explains a lot of things, does that mean that there really are these atoms or these subatomic parts? It's an interesting question to think about. Or is science just providing you a way of predicting behavior of things, or accounting for certain regularities? So that it's nice that we have this theory, and the theories obviously help us build bridges, and everybody's very happy. There are some people in our class might live in the Rockaways, go home over the Marine Park Bridge, and they're very glad that the vehicle that they're in, or if they're walking over it or riding a bicycle, that it goes over the bridge and the bridge stands up the entire time. But does that mean that you're committed to the existence of these weird atoms? Now, that's one kind of question. Another kind of question you see under mental. Well, what kind of beings are we? I mean, we're just made up of chemicals, right? So we're no different than the desk or the computer. We're not. The desk is a conscious being, it's a thinking being. We ascribe moral behavior to it? Well, no, we ascribe no behavior. But there's this other science, biology, that explains it. That is, there are certain special kind of chemicals that make up cells and bring life into existence and create things that are animated, that can move themselves. So that's the difference between a physical object and a living being. It grows, it changes. Okay, but does that mean that, an amoeba and us are the same thing? Or if you think about it, how about an ant? Stomping on an ant is like stomping on another human being. Ants have the same kind of mental life we have. Well, these questions have led people to think that there's this other thing this other thing that might, other kind of thing that might exist, namely a soul. And we're going to hear a lot about that in the ancient Greek world. In fact, it seems that everybody assumed that there was a soul, maybe that they weren't so clear about the distinction between a soul and a body, but that's another story. And a lot of these questions, are really pretty broad and really too general to try to answer directly. But let me give you an example of one that when we look at it, we will understand how you get these questions about being and reality.